the big question is the United States now at war with Iran?
No, we're not at war with Iran, John. We're at war with Iran's nuclear program, and I think the president...
The nuclear program is a red herring. It's a red herring.
...took decisive action to destroy that program last night. If I could step back a little bit, we have to give an incredible amount of gratitude to the troops who did...
If it's a red herring, why were the strikes only to nuclear sites? But if Iran is funding terrorism and trying to build nukes regardless of diplomacy, then what? I mean, Iran should be trying to build nukes. Iran should have been trying to build nukes regardless, it seems, clearly, because American diplomacy means nothing, has only been moving further and further in the direction of full tilt destabilization and turning Iran into a fail state. So if you're a regional power in this process and you want to maintain your sovereignty and you don't want your country to turn into Libya, you probably should very quickly develop nukes. But as far as if it's a red herring, why were the strikes only on nuclear strikes? Why were the strikes on nuclear sites to begin with if there was a denuclearization negotiation taking place? Why was there a time period when there were no new centrifuges being developed, and then Donald Trump came in and cast aside that previous diplomatic effort? That's just a casus belli. It's basically WMDs, okay? Just as fake as WMDs. Hasan, why do you hate America so much? I don't. I think these guys hate America, or rather, they hate Americans. They hate people like you. They want people like you to go out and die so that their butt buddies can make more money off of all of this death and destruction. They are careless with the lives of black and brown people all over the global south, and they're not even careful or not even remotely interested in uplifting the living standards of regular ass Americans. If I hated America and Americans, I would be on board with everything that Donald Trump is doing. You have been convinced, unfortunately, by these dumbasses. I'm going to unban this person. Hopefully this will be an opportunity for them to learn. But you've been convinced by people like this, just because they put the stars on there, just because they fly the American flag in the process of doing all this shit, that it is perfectly valid for them to steal your money, the money and the wealth that you are generating, that you will never see a return on.
An amazing thing last night. Think about this, John. They flew thousands of miles away, a 30-hour nonstop flight. They never touched down on the ground, and they dropped a 30,000-pound bomb on a target about the size of a washing machine. No military in the world has the training, the skills, and the equipment to do what these guys did last night.
Yeah, about like, what, 120,000 health cares? That's what it cost. This military campaign. Every time Iran has attempted negotiations during this process, they have been deceived, and the opportunity has been taken for brazen military action by the West. I don't know how people can still be talking about Iran coming back to the negotiating table. You blew it up. Look at what happened only a few days ago when Iran decided to negotiate with Europe. Iran's foreign minister feels positive, but then the French rep goes on CNN and says that he agrees that there should be zero enrichment for Iran. Actually, the U.S. strikes happen only a couple days later.
I know the president and I are both very proud of them, and I think what they did was accomplish a very core American national objective. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapons program. The president's been very clear about this, and thanks to the bravery and competence and skill of our great pilots and everybody who supported this mission, we took a major step forward for that national objective last night.
It certainly was a complex and overwhelming mission.
Yeah, see, you hide yourself, you drape yourself in the flag, you hide behind our brave soldiers and our military might, and then that's how you effectively dismantle any sort of counter, because no one in mainstream media is going to sit there and be like, how do you think this advances America's interest? There was a negotiation that was taking place. Iran was very responsive to said negotiations, and you used the negotiations in a way to let our rabid attack dog that's doing a genocide in Gaza go and strike Iran directly, and then you ended up joining the fight while there were more talks about diplomacy. How can anybody ever again trust America and its word? Ever again? We struck nuclear sites, man. We struck nuclear facilities. This is like how do we not understand this is an incredibly dangerous precedent? We did this after spending years and years talking about how scary it is that Russia is doing so in Ukraine.
125 aircraft involved, we are told. Can you say definitively that Iran's nuclear program has now been destroyed?
Well, John, I don't want to get into the sensitive intelligence here, but we know that we set the Iranian nuclear.
Yeah, they didn't. This is the way to basically admit that they did not, by the way. That's the other side of the story. And just watch this space. They're going to say they didn't in a little bit when they justify striking Iran again. Just so you understand. They're going to say, oh, well, this was a good first strike, but more strikes are necessary. First, Israel will say this. They've probably already started saying this. They're going to say, oh, the impact was very limited. And also, they had moved the enriched uranium to other facilities. And our intelligence is working tirelessly to figure out where those facilities are. Could be under a mosque, could be under a school, who knows? And then Iran will strike. Iran will continue striking. And then they will demand, they found another deep underground base, actually. There's special intelligence. America has to come back again. America has to fight again. That is, if Iran doesn't, in the interim, Iran doesn't immediately strike American bases, which will pull America into the conflict as though they haven't been pulled into it already. Iran themselves said it. I know, but Iran said that literally a week prior to the American bombing campaign. America knew that Iran had already moved the enriched uranium, and yet they struck Fordow anyway. I think the real reason why America struck Fordow and the other nuclear facilities directly was so that they would shift Iran's attention away to American assets in the region and away from bombing Tel Aviv. Because I think that Israel's air defenses have diminished. They have been exhausted. So every day that Iran spends striking Israel instead of striking American assets is a day where the appetite for more violence and bloodshed from Israeli society overall, once they finally experience repercussions, goes away. It's another day where the Israeli economy is at a halt. You keep thinking Iran is lying, but they are puppy. That's not what I'm saying. You realize America has more of those MOPs. America could kill Khamenei yesterday, and so could Israel. Why have they not done so far? I think they inevitably will, but the reason why they haven't done so thus far is because there's still a calculation being made here as far as what the Iranian society appetite is for furthering or for revenge. Because if they were to strike the most diplomatic, centralized form of power that they have, that they could easily kill, they do not know who comes next or what Iranian society looks like after this. America and Israel's goals in the region ultimately are either a puppet state of their design that can maintain some semblance of stability, which will be very difficult because Iranians have no appetite for further destabilization efforts from the West, especially considering that the Islamic Republic was a direct reaction to the initial destabilization that the West brought about. Okay? So that'll be incredibly brutal, far more brutal than the Islamic Republic, which is crazy to imagine. Okay? And it's not that, I mean, you can just point to the previous Shah regime to understand exactly how angry and resentful Iranian society got due to the Shah's ruthless autocracy and its ruthless policies. Or if they can't implement a puppet state or maintain a puppet state in Iran, they'll most likely try to turn it into a fail state.
Nuclear program back substantially last night. Whether it's years or beyond that, we know it's going to be a very long time before Iran can even build a nuclear weapon if they want to. But I actually think that raises the most important question. The president talked about this last night. We want Iran to give up their nuclear weapons program peacefully. But there is no way that the United States is going to let Iran have a nuclear weapon. And so they really have to choose a pathway, John. Are they going to go down the path of continued war, of funding terrorism, of seeking a nuclear weapon? Or are they going to work with us to give up nuclear weapons permanently? If they're willing to choose the smart path, they're certainly going to find a willing partner in the United States to dismantle that nuclear weapons program. But if they decide they're going to attack our
A fail state, what is that? Something that resembles either Syria or Libya.
troops, if they decide they're going to continue to try to build a nuclear weapon, then we are going to respond to that with overwhelming force. So
Libya.
really what happens next is up to the Iranians.
So let me drill down on what was accomplished. 'Cause there's a report this morning in the New York Times that Fordo, that deep underground enrichment facility, was severely damaged but not fully destroyed. But the president said last night the enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Can we say that definitively, or are we just not sure yet? I mean, have those facilities been obliterated?
Well, John, severely damaged versus obliterated, I'm not exactly sure what the difference is. What we know is that their nuclear program back substantially. And again, John, I don't want to get into very sensitive intelligence about what we know, but I feel extremely confident, and I can say to the American people with great confidence that they are much further away from a nuclear program today than they were 24 hours ago. That was the objective of the mission, to destroy that Fordo nuclear site and, of course, do some damage to the other sites as well. But we feel very confident that the Fordo nuclear site was substantially set back, and that was our goal.
The UN's atomic energy watchdog said that Iran had 900 pounds of highly enriched uranium. Do we know what has become of that? Was it destroyed in this attack? Do we know? That's a big stockpile.
We're going to work in the coming weeks. Yeah, John, we're going to work in the coming weeks to ensure that we do something with that fuel. And that's one of the things that we're going to have conversations with the Iranians about. But what we know, John, is they no longer have the capacity to turn that stockpile of highly enriched uranium to weapons-grade uranium. And that was really the goal here. Uranium is not that difficult to come by, John, but enriching uranium up to the point of a nuclear weapon, that is what the president put a stop to last night.
There is no functional way to stop any sort of nuclear program outside of real hardline commitments to peace and negotiations. Barack Obama and Donald Trump basically proved this, okay? In the absence of that, if the goal is to stop the nuclear program, then your goal isn't the nuclear program at all. Your goal is destabilization. The nuclear program, which doesn't even exist, really. Like, they don't have nukes. It's a lie. It's like saying Iraq has WMDs. It's the same shit. You're not going to be able to do that with a limited air campaign either. The only way you can do that with boots on the ground military warfare, which good luck at that point. If you thought the Iraq war was bad, holy you are unhinged. What? Hasan, this is the same chatter from before. He's just arguing in chat and not listening to what you're saying. Iran is 1v6. They do not have superpower. They are weak and don't have any support. Iran is not Superman. Iran will not go Super Saiyan. What are you talking? No one is saying this. No one is saying this. Okay? Remember what these guys said about, remember what everybody said about Yemen? Oh, dude, Yemen is going to learn today about what it means. Yemen is going to learn today about what it means that Americans don't have health care. Who learned? Who learned that lesson? Did Yemen learn that lesson, or did we learn that lesson? That's not how war is waged, chatter. If that's how war was waged, about the superior military, and it wasn't about like logistics, and if it wasn't about attrition, then Yemen would have stopped bombing Israel. They have not. They came to the table, and America literally secured a ceasefire with American naval vessels only. Why did they do that? Because they kept bombing Sanaa. They kept bombing different parts of Yemen. They killed civilians, and Yemen did not let down even a little bit. Stop using stupid-ass faillennial references to talk about
This morning, the Russian reaction caught my eye. Dmitry Medvedev,
Yes, my dad
of
is
course, the former
lighting the kitchen
president,
on
prime
fire
minister
again.
of Russia, now the deputy chairman of Russia's Security Council, said the enrichment of nuclear material, and now we can say it outright, the future production of nuclear weapons will continue. A number of countries are ready to...
By the way, we'll say it outright now is most likely a mistranslation. Also, once again, Medvedev is not... Medvedev is a fabulist, okay? With the things that he said about Ukraine, everybody obviously dunked on him when he was saying that shit, unless it was, good enough to do propaganda. But as far as nuclear weapons will continue, the production of nuclear weapons will continue. I think what they are trying to say in this circumstance, if we are to take this seriously, if he is truly even representative of the Russian position, which I don't think it is. I think it's an exaggeration of the Russian position. They're saying that they are going to pull out of the denuclearization, the NPT.
Directly supply Iran with their own nuclear warheads. What do you make of that Russian response? And are they off base? I mean, they're saying that the nuclear program in Iran is still well underway.
Well, first of all, I think it's a bizarre response, but I also don't know that that guy speaks for President Putin or for the Russian government. One of the things that we've picked up, John, in our conversations with the Russians over the last few months, despite our many disagreements, of course, with the state of Russia, they've been very consistent that they don't want Iran to get a nuclear weapon. And this is what I think many commentators underappreciate about what the president did last night. Iran having a nuclear weapon, nuclear proliferation in the Middle East is a disaster for pretty much everybody. It's one of the few issues where Russia, China, and the United States have broad agreement is that we don't want to see a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. So what the president did was very important. I'll let President Putin speak to what the official Russian position on this is, but I feel very confident that both for Russia, for China, and most importantly, of course, for us, we don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon, and I think that goal is going to continue to animate American policy for the next few years.
President Trump last night also threatened additional military action if Iran retaliates or if peace does not come quickly. How quickly are we talking about? Are we talking about days? Are we talking about weeks?
Well, look, John, I'll let the president make those determinations, actually, but we're now going to have a serious conversation about how to get rid of Iran's nuclear weapons program permanently, meaning they have to choose not to have a nuclear weapons program and they have to give this thing up. Now, if you go back a little bit, John, what we have said consistently and repeatedly is they cannot have a nuclear weapon. We accomplished the goal of putting them back substantially last night, but there are two big things that the Iranians are going to have to choose from here. Number one, do they attack American troops in the region? If they do, as the president said, you're going to see overwhelming force from the Americans. If they continue to pursue a nuclear weapon, you're also going to see overwhelming force from the American people. So we've got really the ball in Iran's court here. If they make smart decisions, I think they're going to find us willing to work with them. If they continue to support terrorism, nuclear...
work with them, just like we have so far, Work with them as we have done so far. What more do you want? we want to work with them, dude. Come back to the negotiation table one more time so we can slap you in the face one more time as we slowly but surely keep playing the song and dance until your entire sovereignty is diminished, knowing full well that you won't even retaliate one bit in the process. Come on, man. Come on. Have you said thank you, Iran? Iran, have you said thank you? Hasan doctrine for state building is the most important material for all states. For Hasan doctrine for state sovereignty is the most important theory of the 21st century. That's it. It remains the absolute law of the land.
Their weapons programs, then they're going to find overwhelming American force from the American military. That is really the choice before the Iranians, and that's a choice only they can make.
So what retaliation are you expecting? I mean, I know what you're hoping for, but they have vowed retaliation. What are you prepared for? What are you expecting from the Iranians?
Well, it's always hard to guess what the other side is going to do, but what we're prepared for is if they attack us in a maximal direction, first of all, we have got maximum defensive posture. I think that we're going to be able to defend as many of our people as possible. And of course, I'd encourage Americans to pray for our guys in the Middle East because, yes, they are under a significant amount of duress and a significant amount of threat right now. But then, of course, John, if the Iranians attack us, they're going to be met with overwhelming force. And I don't think the president could be clear about this. If you look at...
Wait, what changed? Because they weren't like, I don't know, a week prior. Why are they under significant duress now? I wonder if that has something to do with, I don't know, the decisions made by your administration. I'm so confused. Our little guys, they are just kind of standing there. Our military is small bean. Our innocent military, small bean in the region. It's worthwhile. Listen, it's worthwhile so that we can continue Israel's ambitions of utter dominance in the region. Sorry. Yeah, sure, a couple Americans might die in the process, but that's a risk that we are all willing to entertain. Just pray for them, though. Thoughts and prayers for the American military, for our small bean military in the region.
What we did yesterday, John, we did not attack the nation of Iran. We did not attack any civilian targets. We didn't.
You did. You literally did. Why are you on this Sunday program? Because you are explaining why you struck Iran.
Didn't even attack military targets outside of the 3 nuclear weapons facilities that we thought were important to accomplish our goal of preventing Iran from having a nuclear weapon. So how Iran responds, I think, is ultimately the ball is in their court. But if you look at what we did, it was very precise, very narrowly tailored to our objective. And if the Iranians decide to expand this, then that's ultimately their decision, and the President of the United States will respond in kind.
So you're raising the real possibility that this is not the end of this conflict, but the beginning of this conflict. You know, U.S. response to Iranian retaliation. There's one thing the president has been really consistent about throughout his entire life in politics, and that is the idea of no more wars. Let me play you what he said on election night and, of course, at his inauguration.
I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars that
Remember, they did the peace ticket. They were like, we're the peace ticket.
we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into.
So let me ask you, what do you say to those, including some of the president's strongest supporters, who are really worried this morning that the United States is now involved in yet another protracted war, conflict, whatever you want to call it, in the Middle East?
Well, first of all, John, I think the president has been very clear that we are not interested in protracted conflicts in the Middle East, but there's a question about how do you achieve peace, and we believe the way that you achieve peace is through strength. We took a very narrow and limited approach to destroying the Iranian nuclear program, John. That's what the president did, and I think that, more than anything, is going to ensure peaceful resolution in that region of the world. You can't be weak. You can't sit there and allow the Iranians to achieve a nuclear weapon, John, and expect that's going to lead to peace. It would lead to absolutely disastrous military conflict all over the Middle East. We don't want that. Our Gulf Arab nation allies don't want that. Israel doesn't want that. And it's one of the few issues, frankly, that unites the Arabians to the Israelis is none of them want the Iranians to get a nuclear weapon because they know that it would lead to the opposite of peace. And so I'd say to people who are worried about a protracted military conflict is, number one, the president, more than anybody, is worried about protracted military conflicts. That is not what we're getting ourselves involved in. What we're getting ourselves involved in is a very targeted effort to eliminate the Iranian nuclear program. That will continue to be the goal of American foreign policy, and it's that goal that is going to motivate our action in the weeks and months to come.
But this was, as we discussed, a complex and overwhelming military action last night, and the president is vowing something bigger if the Iranians respond by retaliating. He's also raised the specter of targeting the supreme leader himself. As you know, earlier in the week, he said he knew where the Ayatollah is hiding and that he would be an easy target. Has the U.S. ruled out targeting the supreme leader in Iran? Has the U.S. ruled out trying to achieve regime change?
Well, first of all, we don't want to achieve regime change. We want to achieve the end of the Iranian nuclear program, John. That's America's objective, and that's what the president has set us out to do. The president, in the very tweet you mentioned, or the truth that you mentioned, John, said explicitly that he's not trying to take out the Iranian supreme leader. He's trying to take out their nuclear program. And of course, we took a major step forward with that last night. And again, John, I think we have to back up and test some premises here. How do you achieve long-term peace? How do you prevent spiraling Middle Eastern conflict? Is it through overwhelming military power targeted to an American objective? Or is it by sort of walking yourself into these long-term protracted military conflicts? I think by choosing overwhelming force and overwhelming force tied to something that is important to the American people, that is the end of the Iranian nuclear program, we can achieve peace much more fully than if we sort of sit on our hands and hope that somehow if the Iranians get a nuclear weapon, they're going to be more peaceful. That is a stupid approach, and the president rejected it.
All right, Vice President JD Vance, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Sean. Take care.